17 years since its inception, Airbnb has been the biggest disruptor in the global travel and hospitality industry. The company has built a travel empire by leveraging people's homes, spare bedrooms and vacation houses, and now it wants to push beyond accommodation with a renewed push into what it calls Airbnb experiences. It's introducing new social features on its app to help guests connect with other travelers. It's also introducing a new smart search feature to help guests discover new destinations powered by artificial intelligence. Geopolitical crises and the tariff wars have not managed to dent Airbnb, and the company has continued to post steady growth. But the Airbnb stock has been on a roller coaster since the pandemic. Wall Street is hoping for the bet on experiences and services to pay off, as it could unlock new revenue streams. Joining me now to discuss all of this and more is the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb, Brian Chesky. Brian, many thanks for joining us here on the Global Dialogue. It's great to have you join us on a day that India is celebrating. It's Diwali here in India, so which is why you can see all the lights behind me. It's great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali to you as well, Brian. But let's get started with the ambition and the aspiration that you now have for Airbnb. Brian, as I pointed out, the move and the sort of pivot to services, to experiences. I was in LA when you launched the experiences part of Airbnb's chapter. Do you now want to position yourself as the Amazon of services?
Well, I think that's a pretty good analogy in the sense that there really is no one-stop shop for all these different services. And it's pretty wild because I think people thought of Amazon as the everything store. But Amazon is really the everything that comes in a cardboard box store. And it turns out there's this other part of the economy of services, and there's really no Uber Eats or DoorDash or Airbnb for you can tap a button and a service provider can come to your house, like a chef, a masseuse, somebody to do like beauty, a personal trainer. And we think this is just the beginning. We think these services are going to be popular with travelers. They're really starting to take off. But we also are starting to see people book them in their own city. And so I think this is a really big opportunity for us.
You know, can you quantify the opportunity for me, both between experiences as well as services, Brian? And, you know, I'm asking you this in the context of the fact that we've just had a company that's doing exactly that. The business model is based on providing services at home, and it's just listed here in India on the stock markets. What is the headroom for growth that you believe you have at this point in time? What could this mean in terms of potential revenue enhancement for Airbnb going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about experiences and services. So conservatively, you know, there are companies that do nearly $1 billion in revenue on experiences, and those companies don't have the Airbnb brand, the distribution. So you can imagine that conservatively, it's at least $1 billion revenue opportunity, and it's probably many billions of dollars for experiences. And then we think services are probably significantly larger because there are just so many categories of services. We launched with 10 categories of services, but there are dozens and dozens of categories. And we also think service can be very popular in your own city. So I think that I think the opportunity for services is at least as large as our core business. So certainly the opportunity is tens of billions, potentially greater in GBV, gross booking value. We'll see how much we get, but it's a huge opportunity. And I think the service economy is going to rival retail in the coming decades. So this is a really, really big bet.
It's a really big bet that you're making, but what's the initial response and the feedback been? Because you launched in May, experiences you launched before that. What's the market telling you? What are customers telling you? What are the learnings in the initial phase?
Yeah, really couple things. Number one, satisfaction for experience and service is higher than homes. The average home has about a 4.8 rating out of 5 stars. For experience and services, it's around a 4.93. So the satisfaction is higher. Part of the reason why is because we vet every single service and experience for quality in addition to reviews. We don't do that with homes. We decided that we just really wanted to be much more hands-on with this product. Number two, we've also learned that we need to really focus on a few cities and really get it right. So we focused on LA and Paris. We're starting to get a lot of momentum, and then we want to take that playbook and then bring it to other markets.
You know, you said it's 10 categories to start with, Brian. You know, are there things that you believe you're not going to do? Is there a to-do list and there is a no to-do list for you at this point in time in terms of what you're willing to explore?
Yeah, I mean, there's a not right now list. There's an old saying, you can do everything you want, just not at the same time. And so we have to prioritize. So, there's a lot of types of services that we looked at, like car rentals or equipment rentals. These are going to be very, very popular services, but they require partnerships with other companies. And we said, we're going to start with host-led services. So that's what we're focused on. But never say never. I think there's a lot of services we could go to. I mean, you could say like, we're probably not going to allow you to have we're probably not going to do basic service like non-hospitality services like an electrician coming to your house. Then again, we are starting to see opportunities for host-led services. We have co-hosting services where we can match a host with a co-host to help you host your property. We are starting to look at services for host as well. So I think we're going to see where we're going. We're going to start with our core business of really core hospitality services and then expand out from there. And we'll see. I don't think when Amazon launched books, they thought they would do outdoor, the furniture and outdoor equipment. They started with books, then they went to CDs, DVDs when people were buying those, and media, and then electronics, and they kind of went from one adjacency to the next. And pretty soon they were selling things that had nothing to do with electronics or media. I think that's similar to Airbnb. We're starting with travel, we're starting hospitality, and we'll take it from there.
Hotels, Brian, you've, in a way, to put it crudely, been the anti-hotel company in a sense. Is that part of the bucket that you're looking at in the soon-to-do or could-do list?
I think when Airbnb started, it really was a very much an alternative to hotels, generally. At the same time, something big has happened in the last 17 years since we started Airbnb. One of the things is there's been this huge independent and boutique hotel movement that's really gotten some legs. And a lot of these companies provide great hospitality. And I don't think we're anti-hotels at all. I think we're probably anti-mass-produced hospitality, cookie-cutter hospitality. And I do think that a lot of boutiques and independent hotels provide great hospitality and they belong on Airbnb. And so we are looking at hotels, especially independent hotels. And we would love to have the best independent hotels on Airbnb. And so we'll have some updates soon on that.
How soon, Brian, can we have an update on that front?
Well, let me put it this way. When we do, I'd love for you to be one of the first people to talk about it with.
Wonderful. I look forward to that. But let's talk a little bit about India, because your international plans and your international markets have actually done much better than your core markets, growing twice the rate as your core markets are concerned. Let's double down on India and what you have lined up for the Indian market and how the Indian market is doing for Airbnb.
I think India, we think of as probably like a 10-year bet or longer. So we think it's going to be one of the biggest markets in the world. You just have to have a long horizon on India. I mean, we know that it's a huge market, the largest population in the world. It will eventually, I imagine, be the largest middle class in the world based on the GDP growth. Right now, it's primarily domestic travel. 90%, it's primarily young travelers, domestic travel. So 90% of our business are Gen Z or millennials, and about 90% of business is also domestic travel. Eventually, I see that there's going to be a lot of outbound travel. I think Indian travelers are eventually going to leave India and cross borders. That will happen when the Gen Z and millennials kind of age and move up the economic ladder, and they are able to travel internationally more and more. You're going to see more business travel as well. So I think it's going to be a huge bet for us. It's a long bet because we're really betting on the next generation. We think this next generation is going to want authentic travel experiences. And additionally, we also think we want to bet on India as a destination. We think eventually millions of people, maybe tens of millions of people, are going to travel to India. So I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for us in the coming decade. So this is a really big bet for us.
I was just going to ask you that, from an experience point of view, do you see India playing a role at all as far as the Airbnb plans are concerned?
Absolutely. I think that India is going to be massive, not just for our core market, but for also services, experiences, and anything else we want to do. I see India as early adopters in a lot of new services and experiences. You know the market a lot better than I do, but one thing I do know is that I think that they want authentic experiences. They've got an incredibly rich culture, and I think that plays well to Airbnb's strengths.
You know, Brian, let's talk about what's happening globally. And I know your numbers are going to be out next month, but you know, what are you picking up at this point in time? Growth has been steady. You know, you've guided for about 4 billion in Q3. What are you reading into at this point in time? The headlines are screaming uncertainty, but that hasn't really percolated down to spending behavior and spending patterns in the way that one would have imagined.
I think that travel is incredibly resilient, and that's something I've been surprised by since really the pandemic. You know, when the pandemic, when we went into lockdown, we lost 80% of our business in 8 weeks, and people were predicting, is this the demise of Airbnb? And it wasn't. And part of the reason it wasn't was not just that travel is adaptable, but Airbnb is inherently adaptable. And so when there's economic uncertainty, people also look at affordable ways to travel. And so I think Airbnb is very resilient, as is the travel industry. And I think one of the things we're noticing is that people cut back their spending, but one thing they don't want to cut back is their travel. And that's what we've seen.
But are you satisfied with the growth rates that you are seeing? Do you believe that you can do better? And what will it take for you to do better?
I am not satisfied at all. No one in the company is satisfied. You know, we would like to be growing significantly faster. I think we will. And I think there's a lot of ways to do that. You know, I think our core business, homes, short-term rentals, is just beginning. I do not think we are reaching any level of saturation. I mean, give you an example, 70% of our business is essentially in 5 countries, which is US, Canada, Australia, UK, and France. There's a lot of other countries around the world, including India, where we can get a lot of growth. Then you have services. Services could be a massive multi-billion-dollar opportunity. We talked about this idea of the Amazon of services, experiences. Then there's hotels. Then there's all these other businesses we want to launch as well. So I think we're just the beginning of the next chapter of Airbnb, and that chapter is going to be including an accelerated growth rate.
You know, when you speak about this next chapter, Brian, and you're pivoting into a whole host of areas that you don't have the experience in at this point in time. From a bandwidth point of view, from a sort of organizational structure point of view, how are you positioning yourself to be able to deliver to the promise that you're going to be making to customers across each of these very different verticals?
I mean, that's a really good question, right? We don't want to go into a business and do a bad job. We want to go into a business, and the day we launch, we want to make sure that people know we're as good or better. I mean, I'll make a bold statement. I actually think the customer experience for services and experiences is better, not inferior, to our core product. And the reason why is because first of all, service experiences are not totally different. What they all have in common is these are host-led businesses. We know a lot about hosting. We know a lot about, you know, online marketplaces. So these are adjacencies. And in these adjacencies, we started really small, and we tried to take lessons from our core business. And one of the lessons is we should do more vetting up front. And that has worked really, really well. So we're much more hands-on with these new marketplaces. And we only go into things if we think we have a contribution to deliver, if we can do a better job than the industry. And I think that we're limiting our bandwidth to the things we can do a great job on. That's why we think we're doing services experiences really well.